Mayan kings is sitting in some sort of a device, and they start looking at it. He's controlling something with his feet, and he's got his hands on something, and he's got his mouth on something. And Eric von Daniken was the first guy to come out and say he's in some sort of a craft or some sort of a ship, and he's flying it. He went to Egypt. He went to South America. He went to Peru. And he started finding the same thing at each of these locations. And during this period of time, there was no communication between these people. Still trying to understand, how did the South Americans know to do pyramids?
Yeah.
How did they do this in Egypt? How did they do this in China? There's pyramids now they're finding in China. They just found more pyramids in Antarctica. They're saying there's pyramids in Bosnia. So he has literally, the awakening has been something that has been obviously a long time happening, but now people are really starting to see what he was talking about. So now you look at Peru, and they had these large faces with these big eyes, and you couldn't see these drawings unless you were in the sky. So they go to Easter Island, and in a cave underground, and again, now I'm curious as how these guys even had light under there to do this, they carved those same faces into the stone. Easter Island was just that. It was an island. It was 4,000 miles from any landmass. Of course, these people are all extinct now. They actually made these big heads and had them all surrounded on the island itself. But they didn't, until the communication got what it is today, we didn't know that all these things were the same. And now that they can start to travel and start to see, hey, this was the same as here, they're just calling it something different. If you look at some of the very, very intricate carvings that were done, these were concrete carvings, obviously, and everybody was carrying a purse. And he started noticing that this purse seemed to be universal with the Egyptians, with the Mayans, with all these different groups. And he started talking to a NASA astronaut one day, and the NASA astronaut pulled up a picture, and all the astronauts carry this life support system with them that's actually hooked up to their system as they're getting onto the rocket. So he's like, what if the people at that time were witnessing these guys carrying some sort of a life support system with them, but didn't know what it was, so it just shows up as a purse on all these different drawings.
That's so cool.
So it is. It's amazing, man, when you really start to think about the bigger picture of it, because how could Peru know what South America was doing? How could South America know what the Egyptians were doing?
Right.
So it just became one of these things that where nobody really seemed to do that. So Eric von Daniken started to do that. He started to show everybody, hey, wait a minute. How could they possibly know this? Was this just a lucky guess? Did they know that the pyramid, or he went to, I think one of the first places he ended up going was India. And India had, what do they call it? They actually had a name for them, but they looked like, they were pyramids, but they looked like these flying craft called, what were these things called here? Hang on a second. Let me look it up real quick.
Aiden, go through your pictures. This is probably in there.
It is. I put it in there. Oh, wait, it's right here. They're called Arumka Vimanas.
Okay.
And they were actually flying vehicles. And if you look at the towers.
Aiden, it's this one right here. Look.
Yeah. If you look at the towers they built.
It's that one.
Through India. Dude, these towers are amazing. They are so intricate. There is so much going on with these actual towers that you're like, well, were guys in there with chisels? Come on, man. You would break off the hand. There'd be no way you could do some of the really small, intricate work that's required to do. Mm-hmm. So he started looking at, hey, how are they doing this? What's causing this? And India, even today, I think I'm going to put that on my bucket list because it's definitely one of the most amazing places on the planet to go see, that makes you scratch your head and go, how could somebody do such intricate artwork? And it's hundreds and thousands of years old. So he started to really look at that. So then from there, he went to Egypt and started to talk to Egyptologists. Now, Egyptologists still don't have a view that this has anything to do with aliens. They still believe it was all based on humankind. Then there's two beliefs in this world. You've got the scientific side that says, hey, we started from apes and we kind of came down the road. Mm-hmm. And you have a religious side that says, no, Jesus and God did all this and made us who we are today. Whichever way you believe, we end up coming at the end, we're the greatest thing on the planet. Mm. So, and yet there's got to be more to this in the bigger picture than what's really going on. We wouldn't have all this information floating around today that's so, I mean, look at the guys that initially went with Dr. Greer. They went to D.C. They did Project Disclosure. They brought in 40 military personnel that were all verified as who they were. Now, Dr. Greer is a doctor. He was an emergency room doctor. Oh, there they are.
There's the okay. What? Explain what these are.
Now, the center one, the Ramana,
Is that as big as you can get it, Aiden?
that is the actual craft they said they flew around in.
Oh.
Now, the towers on either side these are structures that are in India today. These are religious towers, and it's
And what is that thing that goes through the center of them?
in the middle one or on the end.
In the middle one on each side, there's like two things that go up. through it.
You know what? I'm not sure. They were trying to show some sort of anti-gravity material that would actually let that thing take off and land.
Huh.
But they talk about these things flying around in their religion and actually having fights in the air, shooting each other down. So, of course, what did the Indians do? They designed the buildings to look just like that flying craft did. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is that an accident? And if you look at the detail, I mean, these things are huge, monstrous.
And where are these at?
These are in India.
India.
I mean, just amazing. And so that's where this is really where Eric von Daniken really started to put together this whole idea that the gods were really astronauts. Mm. And so he said it's one of the best places in the world to go because so much of what they created is still there.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think the potential alien sightings back then in those times, in the times of like the Mayans or the times of the ancient Egyptians, do you think that aliens maybe weren't as sophisticated as they were like in the 90s or in the 80s? Because my question is, because they have those packs on them, right? Those bags that you say would be like life support.
Right.
But then you hear like stories of like the Zimbabwe encounter where there was just these aliens wearing black suits and they were just skin tight black suits. That's all they had. And they were standing there just telepathically communicating with them.
And I've actually heard that a couple times. Believe it or not, NASA has those same suits now. They're getting rid of all the big heavy space suits. They've gone to a skin-like suit that fits over your body that almost fits you like a second skin.
That's what I'm wondering, if over the time, if we've been visited by different species of aliens.
Well, listen, Eric von Daniken said to no avail that when shoot, let me think of this group now. One of the groups that were coming here, they were really kind of like fallen angels, and they were told, "Hey, while you're here, let these people do their work. There's no having any sex with them." And they actually came down and ended up having sex with us. So they believe through gene manipulation and through these things actually spawning us, this is how we all kind of came to be. And they believe this happened over about 50,000 years. So this millions of years we hear about, hey, you were an ape. I never kind of bought off on that to begin with. I mean, you're an ape. I said, well, why aren't we still changing? Why aren't we still evolving? I mean, I would think if it happened then, it would still be happening today.
Yeah.
I don't see monkeys getting a whole lot smarter. Elephants aren't talking.
Yeah.
So where would at what point does it stop?
Mm-hmm. And also, why the monkey? Why not the elephant?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you really look, if you go back and look at the gentleman who's the one who came up with this whole concept, I'm cracking up. His name slips my mind.
Darwin?
Darwin. Thank you very much. He went to the Galapagos, looked at the islands here. He only spent 2 weeks and then came up with this idea that this is what happens. And he did this through birds that were there because birds had, the same bird that was on a different island had a curved beak so that he could reach inside these cactuses and pull out the seeds. But it was the same bird on the other island that had a straight beak. So he started to believe that through your environment, that's what actually changed us.
Right.
But again, he spent 2 weeks there, and all of a sudden that is law. We all hear that now. We all came. This is how we grew up. It was, chimpanzees, and then we were walking, and then all of a sudden now we're smart. And so he started to look at that and say, no, that can't be. That it just can't. It would still be happening today.
Yeah.
Animals would be still changing. We would see in the last 10,000 years that something has happened to these animals. And he goes, we're not seeing that. He goes, but if you go back and you start looking at when these guys started talking about gods, or there was even pictures, and I meant to get some of these as well. If you look at the 14th and 15th century, these pictures that were actually painted, and there's something up in the sky, in the back behind it, whether it's the Virgin Mary and some guy's pointing at it and his dog's looking at it. So these things have been going on for so long that people didn't really know what to call them. And then listen, even through the 70s and 80s here, people were you're kind of a clown or a nutcase if you believed in this stuff.